Hi everyone, this is Abhishek and welcome back to the fourth session of Openloop. Till the previous sessions, we had covered up to the basic widgets of Flutter, and in this session, we are going to move toward the advanced widgets. And we had covered up to this part. The last topic that we covered was gesture detector widgets, and in today's session, we are going to start with the app bar widget. Okay, so let's start. So we are starting today's session with app bar class. In app bar class, we are starting the app bar widget and that we have here. So here we have an example. What is app bar actually? In our application, here you can see at the top that we have where we have the title for this application and some buttons and some important buttons, and you may have seen the search option. And these all the things are generally placed at the app bar. So for creating this app bar, we have a widget called as app bar. Here we have an example, this app bar, and in app bar we have placed a title, that is a text, and in the text we have mentioned this app bar demo, right? After that we have an icon button, and this icon button is for alert. So add alert, and what will happen after the icon button will be clicked. So it is also like written here, right? So this is all about the app bar. So if we like just test it, so when we are pressing this button, what will happen? This function will run. Similarly, if we change the text that we can do, let's write hello world, and let's run it. So what will happen actually? The title for the app bar will be changed to hello world. Fine. You may check about this widget in the documentation of Flutter, and it is available if you search just flutter.dev, so you will get that. Right? We are moving towards the next widget that we have. That is Silver App Bar. Let's click on it. So it is opening. Till then, let me tell you that it is used for creating attractive app bars. You may see these type of app bars generally in your Android applications or iOS applications. So here we have an example. Maybe it is loading. Yeah, so it will be loading here. So here we have an example of Sliver app bar, and you can see when I'm just scrolling it. Let me show you. So here we have so here we have a Sliver app bar, and you can see when I'm just scrolling it down, what is actually happening with the app bar? It is shrinking, right? So when I just scroll it up, it will automatically expand when I just reach to the top. So this is happening because of the widget Sliver app bar that we have used here, right? So this is happening because of this. And one thing is there that it will expand and shrink because of Sliver app bar. And if there is a like property called as pin, and if I remove this pin property like this, so when I have removed pinned from my code, what will happen if I just scroll it up like this? Yeah, now you can see my app bar is gone now, right? While when I add this feature or this, you can say property, then what will happen if we load it once again? What will happen if I just scroll it up? Now you can see there is a floating app bar over there, right? So it will be pinned on the top. So this is the use of this feature. Similarly, we have a floating option. So here we have a button for floating option. If I turn it on, then what will happen? Like you can see when I'm just scrolling it down anywhere, like anywhere in the list, you can see that our app bar is expanding. You can see that our app bar is expanding over there, right? If I just turn it off, you can see that it will not expand until I have reached to the top, right? Only at the top it will expand. So these are some properties of silver app bar. There are many other properties you can see at the bottom here in the documentation, right? So you can see all the properties in the documentation. We're just moving to the next widget that we have. So the next widget that we have is search delegate. Search delegate is used for creating, you can say simply, search options, right? Generally we have in our websites, in our applications, a search option at the top, right? So for that option we use search delegates. So you can create these search delegate and you can link your data. You can like use your data for searching particular things, uh, like with the help of search delegate. And you can use some properties that are available here, like queries, which are very helpful, and some other like text input action. These type of properties are also available in the search delegate. So let's move to the next widget that we have. Next widget is list view builder. So with the help of this, if you want to build a list, but like if you want to build a list of a lot of numbers, so like it will take a lot of time to build that build that list, right? So here comes in picture our list view builder. So here we have an example. I will just wait for the example to get loaded. Till then, let's understand the code that we have. So what we're doing, we're simply using the list view builder here in the body, and it will simply do one thing. It will just count the items that we have so that we can use it, and we will simply build the list view, right? Simply it is also returning us a list tile. And what is that? We will just discuss list tile in other like. So what is that? We will just understand list tile in in this session only. In the like upcoming widgets we will understand that, but for now just understand this one item is capped under a list tile. So if you want to create a lot of numbers, like you can see here we have hundreds and thousands of numbers here, like there are a lot of numbers, right? So for creating these items it will take a lot of time. So for that we can simply use list view builder. So this is the use of list view builder. You can check it out in the documentation, and let me know if there is any problem with this widget in the discussion section, right? Okay, let's move to the next session. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, reorderable list view. So with the help of this list view you can create reorderable lists. So you might have seen some list where you can just adjust, you can say you can give preference to some things, some items, right? So in that scenario you may use these type of widgets. So here we have an example. Here you can see 6 items. We have more than 6 items actually. So what we can do here, we can just shift our items to any of the locations, right? So this is the use of what we say a reorderable list view, right? So let's see the code that we have for it. So here we have reorderable list view. In this, what we simply do, we simply create list using for loops and other things, and we have list tiles. What are list tiles? These items. These all items are placed in list item. These all items are placed in list tile, right? So this the thing that I have just carried is a list tile that I'm just using, right? So these are list tile, and we are just using on reorder. What we will do on reorder, so on reorder what will happen will be here. So we will just change the set according to the reorder, right? So simply all we learned is that we can use reorderable list view for doing these type of things, right? These type of things. So you can easily do these type of things with the help of reorderable list, right? So this was reorderable list. Now let's move to the next widget that we have is list tile. So we are reading out list tile, list tile. Now let's understand what is list tile. So list tile simply provides you a tile, or you can say a card type of thing, where you can place your content of particular item, right? So if a particular item has some logo, has some text, has some options, so you can add them to a tile and you can give those tile to a particular list, right? These are the things. So let's see an example. Here we have an example. So here we created a container which has some color and has a child that is material, and it has a list tile which has some title and some color, right? So this was a simple example of this style, and let's see some other example. Like here we have an example. So here we have list view. First of all, we created a list view as a parent, and then in the children we created cards, right? So first card, here we had like simply a text, right? So here we can see in the example we have just a tile, here you can see, and one line list tile written over it. So this part, right? simply we had different Simply we have different other cards, right? And for different other cards we have added the logos and the text and many other things, right? So with the help of this we have created a list view. So this is the list view. So this is how you can use list tile for creating a complex type of list, like this one that we have, right? Like this one, where you can use logos, where you can use different buttons and text and many other things, right? Here we have a menu option, so you can use that also, right? So this is the use of list tile. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is future builder. So I have opened future builder over here, and let's see what is the use of future builder. So with the help of future builder you can do something like, if you want to create a loading screen for your website, right? Like some data is to be loaded on your website, and user will find the content that he wants, but for that time the data is being loaded, you want some loading screen, right? So for that we use future builder. Let me show you an example that we have here in the example. Here you can see, if you want to load this data, let's say some data is to be loaded, and let me show how this application will work if you have used future builder. So this, can you see this part, this loading screen? So this screen is here only because of the future builder, right? When I'm just clicking on this run button, you can see these type of things, right? These lines that were like going over here. So these type of things can be done using future builder, right? So future builder is very useful when you're loading a large data on your screen, and for that user may have to for that the user may have to wait a little bit. So for that user may have to wait. You may also show the user that how much percentage of data is downloaded on the screen. So these are the benefits of using future builder class. Now let's move to the next class that we have. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is future builder. So I have opened future builder over here, and let's see what is the use of future builder. So with the help of future builder you can do something like, if you want to create a loading screen for your website, right? Like some data is to be loaded on your website, and user will find the content that he wants, but for that time the data is being loaded, you want some loading screen, right? So for that we use future builder. Let me show you an example that we have here in the example. Here you can see, if you want to, so for that user may have to wait, and you can show how, you may also show the user that how much percentage of. So these are the benefits of using future builder class. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is data table. So what is data table actually? We can create a table of data using data tables, right? So let me show you an example. These type of things we can do, right? If you want to arrange the data of some students in the form of rows and columns, so you can do it with the help of data table. You can also use rows and column widgets for that, but it is a simpler way. So here we have name, age, role, and we have arranged all the things according to rows and columns. So how we can do it? Let's see in the code of this. So we have the code here. So for that, first of all, we need to create the data table. So we are just creating the data table, and in that data table we first create the column, and this column represents the heading part of the of our table. So if you want to add name, age, role, just use the column property of that data table. Here each data column has some data related to the heading, so we're just creating the heading, and and that heading should be like matching to like according to the column that we have. So here we have data column where we have given a label that is a text and that is name, and we have given some style to it, and the same thing we are doing for other headings, these heading. Now when the heading part is like completed, we can simply create a row or like different rows. So we have simply used the rows property of data table, this data table. For that data table we have we have used the rows property, and in that rows property we have three rows. For three rows we mean these three rows, these three rows, these three rows, right? One row, two row, three row, and each row has three cells. What are these cells? This one cell, second cell, and third cell, right? So these are the three cells. For each cell we have some content, that is text. Here we have uh, Sarah and 19, the age of him, and the student, like what is the role of him. So this is the thing. So we have just given all the data according to this. So what we did, we just created some data table, then we gave, like we just added the property of columns, and in the columns we added, you can say, headings for our data table. And here we have added the data table headings, and for each heading we have given data in the data cells using the rows property. So we created rows properties. In the rows properties we uh, created different data row as children of the rows property. For each data row, what we created cells as the children, sorry, as so we so in the data row we created cells, we used cells property, and we created data cells as the children of the data row, right? So this is how it works, and you can create different types of uh, you can you can create different types of data table. Like here we have different data tables with different properties, right? So this is the thing. There are many other properties you can check, like column spacing is here, and like decoration is here, divider is here, divider thickness, whatever you want. So there will be a thickness of divider, and you can arrange like you can change it according to your need. So this is the thing. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is default tab controller. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is default tab controller. So what if you want to cover the whole screen for a particular widget, but if you have 4 to 5 widgets, what will you do? And you want the whole screen for all those 4 to 5 widgets, what will you do? You can use tab control, default tab controllers for that. For example, let me show you that here we have two options, right? Left and right. So what we are actually doing, we are simply creating two tabs for so what we are actually doing, we are simply creating two tabs for left and right. So that left widget will cover whole screen. So that left widget will have whole screen to present its data, and similarly right widget will have whole screen to represent its data, right? So it is helpful when you have small screens to create tabs using default tab controller. You can create tabs and you can present your data on the same screen. You don't have to move to any other screen for that, right? So it is helpful to load your data faster, and this is how it works. So here we have the code for this. Here we have two tabs, that is first one is left and the second one is right, and we have used a name for them, that is my tabs, right? So we can use my tabs in the app bar. So here we have app bar. In the app bar we have tab bar, and in the tab bar we have children as tabs, and we have used my tabs for this, right? So that we can use left and right as the tabs. So now we can create data for them, or we can like the content that we want to show in each of the tab, we can do it with the help of tab bar view. So there we have, here we have the tab bar view, and we have defined how our with like what will be the content in each of the tabs. So it will be defined in the tab bar view, right? So this was all about the default tab bar controller. Now, next we have how we will work with the tabs. That is our next topic, this one, tab bar. So let's talk about how the tab bar will work. So here we have an example. So here we have tab bar. So here we have the app bar. So in the app bar, we simply create the tab bar, and in the tab bar, we create the tabs that we need. So in the previous example, we were just creating the tabs out of we were just creating the tabs out of these tab bars, and we were just calling them here. But here we are simply using the tabs property, and in the tabs we have simply defined all the tabs that we want. So this is the first tab, this is the second tab, this is the third tab. So we are just creating it using the tabs property of tab bar. So this is how we can create the tabs. And next thing is how we will get the content. So for that we need to create the property of the scaffold. In the property of the scaffold, we can simply create tab bar view, and in the tab bar view we can have children of the tab bar view, and each of the uh, like if we have three tabs, so we will just simply have three lines for all those three tabs. So each of the tab will have icons, so we have icons here, right? So this was all. So here we have the example of that. So here we created the app bar, and like app bar is a child of scaffold. So we have scaffold, then app bar. In the app bar we have tab bar, and the tab bar has three children, that are tab, tab, right? So each tab has some icon, and those icons we have here. And for that we have data, right? This data actually. So this data is coming from the tab bar view. So this tab bar view is here. We have icon 1, icon 2, and icon 3. So whenever you will click on any other option, you can see here we have the second icon here, right? This icon is coming from here, and this icon is coming from the definition of the tab that you have defined here in the tab bar, right? So two components are required for creating this tab bar, right? What are the the two components? First component is the tab bar, right? The second component is the tab bar view. I'm talking about this. This is the tab bar, and this is the tab bar view. What you are going to represent in the screen, what you are going to represent on the screen is the tab bar. It will be defined in the tab bar view, right? Now let's move to the next widget. So now we have show bottom model sheet. So now we have show bottom model sheet. So let's open it. So with the help of this, you can have a bottom sheet. For example, if you want to have some options that should be coming from the bottom, you have just hidden those options, and you want them to just pop up from the bottom of your application. For example, if I click on this button, you can see these options are coming from the bottom, right? If you want these type of UI in your application, you can simply use show model bottom sheet, right? And here we have the code. Let me show you those codes. So here we have the code. You can check the codes in the documentation. So here we have created an elevated button, right? In the center, actually we first created the center widget, then in the center we created an elevated button. So what is elevated button? Let me show you. This type of button which is like a little elevated from you can say from the surface of the screen, right? So these type of buttons are elevated button. So we have created an elevated button, and it has some text. This is the text, and when it will be pressed, what will happen? This will happen. These all the things will happen, right? So we have simply used a function called as show model bottom sheet, right? So this function is here, and with the help of this function we're simply doing one thing. Let me show you that. So with the help of this function, we are simply creating this a container, you can say, of 200 height and with some color, and like we have in center we have some, you can say, here we have some text and some button, right? Elevated button, and this will automatically appear, right? By right. So when we will click on it, this type of button will appear, and we have also defined another button here, right? So when we will click on it, it will just go, right? So this is about show model button. So this is all about show model bottom sheet, right? Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is alert dialog. Let's open it. So here we have an example of alert dialog. So when we want an alert for some reason, we can use alert dialog class, right? So now let's see the code for the alert dialog box. What will actually happen, that we will first of all create, like it is just an example. So we are just creating a text button. So here we have the text button, and in the text button we are using a builder property, right? So builder property, we are what we are doing actually, we are just creating an alert dialog box, right? So alert dialog box will be appeared when we will just click on this, and for that we have just given some text as the title, right? So we have just given some text as the title and content. In the content we have just given some content here, and we have also added two buttons, right? So we have two buttons here in the actions property. So these are the some properties of alert dialog box. So we can simply create an alert dialog box here with the help of alert dialog, right? So this is the widget that we can use, right? And simply we can add buttons here, you can see here. So what will happen on press, we can decide that what will be the text of that button, we can decide these type of things, right? So if I click on cancel, it will just go back, right? So this was about alert dialog class, right? Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is text field. Now, if you want to add a text feature in your application so that user can fill the text in that text field, and that field will submit that text, and that will just share that text to some other place or some database or anything, right? If you want to do this, you can use text field. So let me show you an example. So here we have the text field, right? Here you can add some password, right? So let me show you another example, just like this, right? Here what you have, you can just type anything, right? So we have just when we just press the enter button, you can see that that data is transferred to some dialog box, right? So this is the use of text field. Let's see how we can create a text field, right? So here we have a text field, an example, and here first of all we have used the controller property, right? So and what will happen on submit is here, right? So these are the properties. So on submit, what will happen, we will just use, like, we a dialog box will appear, right? So here you can see return alert dialog box, right? So alert dialog box will be appeared, and what will be written over there, and there will be some action buttons, like you can say what will be there, there will be some text button, right? So there will be a button where OK will be written, right? So what will happen after, like, you press on, what will happen after you press on OK will be decided here, right? So this is an example of the text field, right? So you can write anything in the text field and you can submit it, right? This is how it works. So this was the text field. Now let's move to the next. Now let's move to the next widget that we have. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is text form field. Let's click on it. Now, text form field is almost like the text field that we studied just before this one. So what actually happens here, that you can add some extra features, decoration to your text field. For example, here we have like this one, right? So what we are doing actually, when we are entering something, we are able to use like you can say some decorative label text, right? You can also use hint text here. There is an example. You can also add some hint text. Okay, and if you want to add, like if you want to just check that the data that the user is entering, for example the user is entering some password, right? So if he's entering some password and you don't want that password to be like if you don't want any uh, alphanumeric character over there, then you can do one thing. You can simply uh, use validator properties. So there are some special properties that you can use with this text form field that are which are like very important. So validator that we have here, we are just returning a function, and that function is returning either null, or it is returning that do not use alpha character. So what it is just checking that whether the value that you are entering is null or the value contains at the rate, right? If either one of the things is happening, then it will perform. So here in validator, what is happening, that a function is there which is returning that, like if the value is null, is the if the value is not null, and if the value does not contain the like if the value contains alpha, right? If the value is not null and the value contains alpha, that means the text you entered has alpha. अरे alpha नहीं बोलते. So what this validator is doing actually, it is just returning two things, right? For according to the condition, right? If the value is not null, but like if you have at the rate in your content or the text you are sending, right? If it has the alpha, if it has the at the rate character in your text, so what will happen, just it will show an error that do not use the at the rate character, right? Otherwise it will simply print null. So it's just like some if else statement, right? So this is what you can do with the help of validator. Similarly, we have on-saved properties, that what will happen after like saving it. So here we have an example. Let me show you. So here we have the text field, right? Here you can enter anything, and you can add the same thing to different, you know, different texts, right? And this was the text field that we normally use. Now we can do some changes, right? We can add different properties to these tags. And what are these properties? Here we have the properties. Like controller we have already, right? We know that. We have onSaved, an option method to call with the final value when the form is saved via form state.save, right? So this is the function that you, if you want to use it, you can use it, otherwise leave it, right? So it will simply help when you have saved that form, right? If you have just like here we have created a form, right? And if you are just saving this value, then you can use it. So this is the use of text form field, right? Then we have validator. So an option method that validates an input, checks, like it just checks the input and returns an error string if returns an error string to display if the input is invalid or null otherwise, right? So these are some properties that you can use, right? So this was all about the text form field. Now let's move to the next one that we have. Now let's move to the next widget that we have, that is form field. So let's open it. So here we have the widget form field. Actually, these are used for checking the validation of the text that we are entering in the field, and they will just tell you the current status of the form you're filling, and the text field that you're filling, and they will just tell you, and they will just tell the reason why any error is showing there. Like if you have if you have not followed the rules that are to be followed there, like if you can't use, like if there was a rule that you can't use alphanumeric characters in the text, then if you're not doing that, then there will be property called as validator. There will be a property called validator that you can use for telling the user that sorry, you can't use these type of alphanumerical keywords, right? And there we have auto validation mode. so that auto validate mode, so that you can use this option for enabling and disabling the form field auto validation and update its error text, right? So these are some options. So similarly, we have Unsaved that we had in the text field, and we have validation. There are some methods also that create state, and like many other features are there, right? So this is all about the form field, right? Now let's move to the extras that we have. Like these are those widgets that you should know about, right? But here we have a list of 10, like here we will be just studying. So here we will be just reading the blogs. So here we will be just reading the blog, and it has it has 10 uh, it has 10 Flutter widgets that you should know, and out of those 10 widgets, you like I think most of them are like already known to us. For example, safe area. These are the 10 widgets that we are going to study. So here's safe area. We have already studied safe areas, expanded, wrap, and now we will, if we talk about opacity, it is a widget that decides that what will be the opacity of its children. Like if there is any image, right? So it will decide what will be the opacity of that image, right? So like if you want to just fade some image according to the background, then you can use this one, right? Next we have future builder that we have already studied, right? Floating action button. Then we have page view. So page view is simply used for creating pages, like just like we have in a what we say in a PDF, right? If you want to add those type of features to your UI, then you can use it. You can use simply page view. Here we have an example like this one, right? Here we have third page, the second page, and the first page, right? So you can use these type of things, right? What you need to do, simply use the you can say page view widget, right? And here you can have your controller, right? And then you can have your pages as children of page view, right? So you can simply use them. Here in the center of each and every children, you can write everything about the page, right? So it is very useful. Like page view is very useful, right? So you can have different screens also. If you want to add different screens to your application, you can use it, right? So it is, you can say, we can use in place of tab bar. Whenever you don't want any tab bar, but you want the screens to be sliding screens, if you want any type of like these type of things, if you want without any tab bar, then you can use page view. Next, let's move to the next one. Table we have already studied, right? We have fade in image. Let's read about fade in image. Now, this widget for fade in image is used for whenever you want a placeholder, like for an image, right? If your image is loading and it is taking time, then you can simply use a placeholder, and that will be an image only, right? So it will be an image, but you will use that image in place of your real image that will be replaced after once it is loaded, right? So you can use a placeholder image. So for that, we simply use fade in images. For example, here we have an example. What we're doing, we're simply creating this widget, and here what we're doing, we're simply using a placeholder, and this is the link which will be replaced, right? So this is how it works. We simply you can simply use a fade image, right? A image which is a little blur, right? So you can do these type of things with the help of fade in images. Let's see the properties that we have. So you can align them, fade in curve. Okay, there are some of the things. You can fit height, and images are there. Image error builder is there, right? And we have placeholder that we like that we definitely use, that we are just that we will definitely use, right? We have repeat options, and like create states are some of the methods that we can use. So this was fade in images, right? So this is fade in image widget. After that, we have stream builder. Let's see what is this. Now if we talk about stream builder, so like what is actually happening that in in modern application, what is happening, we are receiving the data uh, for the application in a asynchronous manner, right? So the data, like there is a chance that there is a chance of error, right? Like receiving the data from different places, different you can say um, storages and from from different databases and servers. So there is a chance of error. So stream builder helps us to remove this error, right? It will just create the streams of our data, and like if our data is coming from one database, then it will just create a stream for that, right? So that there is a very less chance of any type of error in the application, right? So this is stream builder. So okay, so these were all the 10 widgets for this block. Now let's move to the next one. Now the first widget that we have here is dismissible. Dismissible is used for dismissing your items in a list. For example, let me show you this one, and we generally use it in like YouTube, right, for deleting the videos and history, and in Gmail also we use it, right? Here we have an example. Like let's say if I am just deleting this item 26, so I can do it by this, right? Just like this. So this is happening because of dismissible. You can check it out on the Flutter. You can say you can check it out on the Flutter documentation, right? Next, we have sized box. We have already studied. Draggable. This is used for if you want to drag some container or some, you can say, any type of widget, right? If you want to drag it on your screen, you can use it. Use the draggable, right? Just make it parent of that particular widget, right? So this is draggable. Now, using media query, what we can do, let's say if we have different screen sizes, and maybe a user is not interested in the screen sizes that you are providing, or you can say if there are different fonts, right? Font size, and if the user want bigger font size or smaller font size, then at least you need the data according to which you can set the content of your application, right? So if he's using your application on a laptop, then maybe you need a different different UI. So first of all, you have to understand that what is the size of the user's device. So for that you can use media query, and you can also get the data about the user's preferences for your content, right? For let's say some size of your font, these type of things. If you want all those things, you can use media query. Next we have spacer. We have already studied spacer. Then we are going to like we are moving toward animated icon, right? So animated icons are almost like icons, but they have some special features of animating, or like animating themselves, or you can say they can transition themselves from one icon to another icon in an animated form. For example, we have play buttons, right? So like play buttons are sometimes designed in such a way that when you will click on them, they will transition to pause button, right? They will transition to pause button, but in an animated way, right? They will just like this will not happen that they will just appear, right? Suddenly they will animate to become a pause button, right? So this is how it works, right? So if you want to add some other buttons, there are like a lot of animated icons. You can check on the uh, Flutter's there are many other animated icons. You can check them on the Flutter's documentation, right? So these were the Flutter icons. Then we have placeholders. Placeholders are those widgets where you can place the okay, wait, let's study about that. Now let's talk about the placeholders. When you are just building your application and you don't have idea of the content, like you don't have the content for this, so for that you can simply do one thing, that you can place up you can just situate a placeholder over there, For example, if you don't have these type of icons and you are building this website and you don't have these type of contents, you can simply place your placeholder there, right? So if you don't have icon, just place a placeholder, right? Just have a placeholder for these type of images and this content. For example, let me show you. If you are building a application like this, you have, like, you are just going to place some content here, but you don't have that content at this moment, so you just place a placeholder here, right? A placeholder over here. Maybe there is some there, like, maybe you're just going to place some image here, when the application is almost ready, right? For now you can simply place a placeholder here and here also. So this is the use of placeholders, right? Now let's move to the next widget that we have. So we have rich text, we have already studied rich text, and then we have orderable reorderable list view. We have already studied this. So let's move to the next block, right? So next block that we have is the fourth one. So the first widget that we have is animated switcher. So using animated switcher, you can simply use animation between the transition of one widget to another widget, right? So if one widget is transitioning from, uh, if you're just transitioning from one widget to other, you can use it, like, you can animate it, right? Animate that transition using animated switcher. So this is animated switcher. Now let's move to the next one, that is semantics. Now semantics is a widget that is used for giving identity to a uh, particular widget. Let's say if we have a widget that is a container, and you want to tell like you want to tell that what this container is doing, right? So you can do it with the help of semantics, and this is generally used by the search engines, right? So search engine use these type of features, right? Next we have animated padding. So animated padding is simply used for giving a padding, and if it is like it is created in some point of time, right, during the use of your application, then it will be animated also, right? So that padding will appear, but in with animation, right? So this is animated padding. Next we have indexed stack. Now, index tag is a widget that is simply used for switching screens, right? But there is a twist that you can preserve the state of each of the widget. That is, like, if you're switching some widgets, right, or switching some screens, you will just preserve the state of those widgets, right? So this is what we can do with the help of index tag, right? Next we have animated positioned. Animated position is used for giving the position to a particular child, and it is done automatically, right? So whenever you want to change the position of a particular child, then it will be done in Flutter using animated position, right? Next we have constraint box. Constraint box is used for giving basic decoration to your application. Like if you want to add the if you want to just adjust the height and width of a particular container, right? So you can just give the minimum height and maximum height it can occupy, right? And the constraint box will automatically decide that what should be its height and width according to the according to its neighbor widgets that are like available, right, in our application. So it will just adjust the minimum height that it can have and the maximum height that it can have, right? So it will adjust the size of that widget, right? So this is the use of constraint box. Then we have stack. We have already studied stack. Then we are just moving toward the animated opacity, right? So animated opacity is used for giving the opacity with animation, right? So there will be animation uh, in the changing of the opacity, right? So if you want to just change the opacity of some widget, you can use this animated opacity. Then we have fractionally sized box. Now let's talk about this. So sometimes what happens that if you want to add height and width according to a fraction, right? So in that case, you can simply use the fractionally sized box. Let me show you an example here. Yeah, this one. So here we have, if you want to add the width factor that is of 60% and height factor of 25%, let's say. So here we have 60% written in 0 0.6, like in this manner, in decimal manner, but it is simply representing 60%, right? So this is how your height will be for the child, and this is how your this is how your width will be, right? And this is how your height will be, right? And in the child, that is raised button, you have decided you have defined how it will work, right? But the thing is that height and width can be relative, you can make them relative, right? Using the percentage of the parent that you have, right? So this is how fractionally sized box works. Now after that, we have list view. We have already discussed list view. Now let's move to the next block. So here we have the content of the next block. So here we have discussed containers already, and then drawers, and then selectable text, then data table. We have already discussed these things. Slider we have discussed, alert dialog we have discussed, and then we have scrollable sheet. We have discussed this. Now let's talk about the color filtered. Right. So let's discuss this. So color filter simply gives a layer of a particular color to your widget or any type of image if you have, right? Anything, right? If you want to add a particular layer of any other color, right? And not, I'm not saying that that color will totally disappear the exact I'm not saying that the color will totally disappear the real widget that we had, right? It will just it is just like the blue light filter that we have in our mobile phone. What actually happens? Everything becomes a little yellowish, right? So the same things we can do with the color filter, right? If you have an image of blue color and you just like give it a green color filter, then it will become a little greenish, right? So this is what is this is what will happen using color filter. And then we have toggle buttons, right? Let's check. Now, next we have is toggle buttons. Toggle buttons is simply used for create for giving an array of buttons for a particular thing. Let's say if you are having a text, right? And for the text, we generally have, like for example, in a WordPad, right? In a WordPad application, what is there? If you're typing some text, there are some buttons related to that text, and those buttons are like if you want to have that text as bold, or if you want to have that text to be italic, right? These type of things are there, right? So you can use toggle buttons just below them, right? And you can create an array type of thing for them, right? So this can be done using toggle button, right? So these were all the uh, widgets for today. So these were all the widgets for today, and we have covered all the advanced widgets as well as the extras, right? All the things are done. So we covered in the third session up to the basic widgets, and in today's session we have covered the advanced widgets as well as the extra widgets, right? So I hope there will not be any problem in these widgets. If you want to study more about them, just go and visit the codes for them. If you have any doubts related to them, just go and visit their website and you can just check their documentation. I have just told you an overview of I have just told you an overview of most of the widgets, like all the widgets that were available here. They are they are the most important widgets that you should definitely know. There are many other widgets, but these are the most important ones, and I have given you an overview of each of them, right? But definitely practice makes a man perfect. So if you want to know more about them, just go and practice them, right? It is my recommendation. Go and practice them and ask doubts on our Discord channel. If you have any doubts related to any of the widget, just just ask the doubts in our discussion section, right? So this was all about the today's session. We will meet you in the next session, and that session will be about the open source programming, right? So we will start our open source contribution from next session, and we will just start a journey with a basic application, and we will just move forward that, right? We will be like contributing to real projects also, and this will be like a 4 months of program. We have like discussed that in the first session, so we will discuss that once again, that what will be there in the open loop open source part, right? That is the second phase. Okay, so we will just talk about the second phase in the next session, right? So this was all about the first phase. From today, the first phase is over, right? So thanks for joining us for the first phase. We will see you in the second phase, that is the open source contribution part, right? So thank you.